It's time to ignite your soul and unlock your full potential. Join us on Beneath the Helmet, the podcast exploring firefighters' health and wellness. Hosted by retired Fire Chief Arjuna George, our podcast is the perfect place to start your journey towards becoming the best version of yourself. So come on, let's join the conversation and find out what sets your soul on fire.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I have a very special guest on here today, one that I've crossed paths many times, a former firefighter and now a somatic healer who I've partnered up with, and we're doing some amazing work in our local community, but also in the greater community as well. So today I got Juliana join us here today, and she's with Conscious Equine Connections. And like I said, I've met her several times. We've worked together in the fire service. But one of the most memorable times that we connected was when I had the opportunity for a sponsored community equine session with Juliana. So I actually went to the stables, connected with the horses, and this is all just part of my burnout recovery. And did some heart math with the horses, and she guided me through some meditation. And I never really been that close to a horse before. Like I've petted a horse, but I've never truly had a connection with a horse. And I truly felt that day there was a connection. I don't know how to explain it. I'm sure Juliana can, but my experience going through that, I felt a true connection with that horse. It really felt like it was there supporting me. And when I left, I felt like $1,000,000. So it was quite the experience to go through. And that was a sponsored program through the community and Juliana's company that supported first responders definitely through COVID and the pandemic, first responders as well as frontline workers as well. So it was very generous sponsorship for them. So Juliana, welcome to Beneath the Helmet. I'm excited to hear about your company and what you're doing now, and also about the exciting stuff that you and I are working on together. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Arjuna. So happy to be here. This is my first podcast, so I'm pretty excited to see how this unfolds.
Yes.
I am touched to hear your story, and it just goes to show how great the horses are for such a wide range of people. And during that time, the frontline workers I worked with were so diverse in age and background. I really was opened to the idea of how broad the horses, the audience, the horses could work with. And so now I ended up working with children from the ages of 9 or 10, all the way up to, I had an 80-year-old lady who came pretty regularly for session. So it's far and wide, the audience that we work with now.
Beautiful. And you've traveled around the world doing this as well, haven't you? And you've been kind of taught by some of the world's leading equine masters out there.
Yeah, I consider my mentor for the equine facilitated learning work, which is known by the acronym of EFL. Her name is Linda Kohanov. I consider her sort of the pioneer of the field. She began talking about learning with horses from a unique perspective that didn't include riding way back in the 80s, and wrote a book that ended up being a bestseller called The Tao of Equus. She went on to write several other books, and she lives in Arizona, and I was lucky enough to apprentice under her. And then in addition to that, I worked in different countries and connected with different trainers, hoping to find this magical approach to connecting with horses, and learned so much from just such a wide variety of backgrounds.
Did you grow up with horses, like in your life? Was that?
Yeah, I guess the story starts according to my mom, which I don't remember. I was 2 years old and we had gone to the zoo, and there were pony rides. And apparently I saw a horse and I got on the pony and I didn't want to get off. And my mom said it was love at first sight. And ever since then, I've just been drawn to them and had such a passion to spend time with them, both, from a riding background, which is sort of how I got started in a more traditional rider human relationship. And then now combining the passion I have for horses with learning and personal development and leadership to do the work that we do. So I've been lucky enough to have horses in my life for basically the whole thing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations on a brand new baby, baby
Oh,
healthy
thanks.
girl.
Yeah.
Have you introduced her to horses yet, or?
Absolutely. So the
Okay.
horse knew I was pregnant. I have a mare who also had a baby with us. She was somewhat of a teen mom. She was pregnant pretty early. I bought her pregnant, and she had her baby with us. So she was kind of an example to me of motherhood, and the way horses give birth and take care of their young is really inspirational. They're very natural and benevolent parents in most cases, at least May was. And so I felt a deeper connection with her, having been through the pregnancy and the birth of her daughter as well, a filly, Aura. And she definitely knew I was pregnant. And even my gelding was very careful with me. And I introduced Zoe to the horses, and the most enamored was the baby Aura, who's
Mm.
now 2 years old, but she loves Aura. So whenever I'm in there with Aura, she's following me around, sniffing and trying to interact. And Zoe
Wow.
takes it in stride. So
Mm.
she's only 7 weeks old, but
Yeah, no kidding. That's
she
awesome.
doesn't seem phased by having horse noses in her face.
That's awesome. Very cool. So there's probably a lot of people listening right now and are like, okay, so how do horses connect with humans? And what's the benefit here? And how does this unfold really? So maybe just go right back to the very, very basics of how powerful horses are and what they can do for the humans in so many different avenues.
Yeah, so I think one of the main features of horses is that they are nonverbal communicators
Mm.
and they live in social herds, and they are also considered prey animals. Now, I don't like to use the term prey animals because of the negative connotation it kind of encompasses of the animals being sort of helpless.
Mm.
Adult herds in the wild are certainly not helpless prey animals. They are a pretty formidable force. And often, when they're attacked by predators, the predators are unsuccessful. But because they are herbivores and because they are what we call prey animals, they have a strong presence and connection to environment, which enables their survival. They have a strong connection to each other through relationship, which helps as well to alarm them of threats in the environment and to help them live in these really social groups. So they're not nomadic. They are nomadic, but they're not territorial, which means they don't have this protect orientation for space that sometimes humans and predators do. And so they rely solely on each other for survival. And another feature of this nonverbal intelligence is this immense amount of presence that they bring to a space. They have to be so connected through their senses to the environment and to each other that it is a natural mindfulness space for them. So when people come to connect with the horses, they can learn a lot about mindfulness. They can learn a lot about presence and the sentinel nature of certain members of the herd. We mimic that. And I tell kids and adults, okay, we're going to become horses and we're going to engage our five senses in a similar way to the way horses are doing. And you will then, through becoming a horse, understand the immense presence and mindfulness that they participate in basically for 99% of the day.
Hmm.
And then an extension of that is the coherence, which is a practice that you and I have worked on together and that we're both familiar with through the Heart Math Foundation. But this harmony of heart, mind, body, emotions, and this state of regulation is natural for them. And so they help because coherence is so contagious. They also help to co regulate members of the public and clients.
Hmm.
Now, if horses are going to hold space as beautifully and effectively as they can, they do have to, be supported and have all of their needs met. But they are so benevolent. And so, in most cases, they are really great at holding space for people and co regulating them. Another reason why they're really good for people with anxiety or anyone who needs some help with emotional regulation and even burnout prevention.
Hmm. Amazing. I think it's so incredible to hear that. So the five senses would be the five senses that we have as humans as well, or is there different senses there?
Yeah, it's the five senses, but I tend to also
Mhm.
add the sixth.
Mm.
And I do believe that humans have several other senses, which we don't really tap into. And I think horses absolutely have those as well.
Mm.
But during sessions with clients, I do focus on those five.
Mm.
And then we talk a little bit about that sixth sense, which is sort of an energetic feeling of connecting through what we call the quantum field, which has now been studied and researched extensively. It's no longer this woo woo idea that many spiritual practices and leaders talk about. It's a studied and sort of concrete thing that we can learn about. So, this quantum field, this energetic waves and particles, if you like, that connect all of us,
Mhm.
is another sort of aspect to the senses that I like to talk about a little bit as well.
Mm. Yeah, it makes sense because when I teach my TRE practice, when we do it in a group, there's a profound difference in everyone's experience, um, mindfulness, body connection when it's done in a group because that energy field is touching everyone in that group, right? And I've even
Yeah.
seen that online, which I don't know how is possible, but online group TRE practices or any kind of modality like that, somatic, it seems to be there's a connection even through the internet, which is amazing.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
Sort of had a love-hate relationship with technology, but through COVID, I was sort of forced to connect with people on Zoom. And I learned too that the connection through the internet is equal to the face-to-face one that we can experience, which yeah, it's outstanding to me. And I actually just before we came on air did a global meditation for peace
Mm.
through Lynn McTaggart, who has studied the power of group meditations and specifically 8 or more people and the impact that having a collective intention can have.
Mm.
And so there's, again, research around how doing group therapy, meditations, exercises is amplifying the effect. And so, yes, you're right as well. Working with several horses or being surrounded by several horses can have an even more amplifying effect, especially when it comes to the mindfulness practice and that coherence I was talking about earlier. I sometimes invite clients to sit quietly in the field with all three of the horses and sort of merge with the herd, is what I call it. And we together experience that coherence, that presence, and it's certainly more powerful there with all of the horses than it even would be with just one.
Mm. So people who have never experienced it before, what would be some of the things that you might go there for to experience an equine therapy session? And what would the experience feel like for those people? Can you run kind of
Sure.
a generic kind of person through that?
So a lot of people need convincing that it's something that they could try. I think there's a lot of apprehension initially, and it sort of needs to be demystified, if you like. People are sort of skeptical about what exactly you do with horses if you're not riding them.
Hmm.
So often people who don't have horse experience are coming just because they're curious. And the people with horse experience are coming to expand their idea or their ability to connect with the horses beyond using a horse as a tool or using the horse for our pleasure. So they're already thinking about building relationship, building trust, um, how to be with horses without that aspect of usefulness. And so those are sort of two kind of audiences that will come. People who are experiencing anxiety in their day-to-day lives, people who are feeling disconnected or on the verge of burnout, if you like, anyone who has a personal development challenge. Often people come with an idea of something they want to work on, but it's not what we end up working on. If an example for an exa- and as an example, someone might approach me and say they just want to have some connection with the horses from a sort of therapeutic or introspective background, a wellness, let's say a wellness approach. They just want to come and just have that peaceful experience with the horses. And through interacting with them, we reveal that perhaps they have some boundary challenges, and so I work with them on how to hold their space, how to be conscious of their body and extend their presence a little bit beyond their physical self in order to create this sort of invisible bubble that the horses respond to. And so that boundary sort of feedback, biofeedback through doing boundary exercises is really helpful for people who have an issue setting boundaries with other people. And they can experientially feel how it is to set a boundary with this 1,200-pound animal.
Mm.
They have the experience of that and they feel empowered through the success of setting a boundary with such a large animal, that they can then carry that feeling through into their boundary setting with other people. So that's one example of something that might come up. Um, we often do exercises in a space where their horses are what we call at liberty. So the horses are not restrained or controlled or coerced. They have full agency. And that's sort of an important feature of the way I do equine facilitated learning, is that we honor the sentience and their agency to choose. And so the clients will often be in the space with the horses at liberty.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Do you coach them through this, or is this all done through the horse? This learning experience that they're, or is it facilitated by you in assistance with the horse?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Mm.
So I consider myself as sort of a translator as such, and I sort of create this sacred space of possibility with the horses. So I co-create that for the client, and then I try to allow the experience to unfold as organically as possible. Sometimes we are doing more skill-based exercises where I will help coach an individual on a specific skill, like how to set a boundary, and then they will then execute that, and I will support them through that. But a lot of the times, it's very balanced facilitating between me and the horses. And so the client will have an idea what the horses might be saying to them. And then I will have an idea as an observer. And often there are other people as well who will provide their constructive feedback to the participant. And so it's sort of a combination of coaching and supporting a person, and also allowing an experience to unfold organically, and to basically just to hold the space for that person to have their experience without too much of an agenda, which can sometimes restrict or close the experience.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. So first responders would be listening to this episode today. This would relate to them as well. This is something that a modality that a first responder experiencing maybe PTSI, PTSD, or other trauma. Is this a modality that would support their recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. So we mentioned earlier the Frontline Workers program that I ran in collaboration with the local Therapeutic Riding Association. And I worked with nurses and other frontline workers. And I strongly feel that moving forward, we are going to need connection with each other and with nature more than ever. And COVID did really highlight the importance of connecting with each other, how important social interactions are, and also the importance of connecting to our environment. And in Canada, we're so blessed to have such a beautiful environment around us. We really need to understand how nature has an important part to play in our day-to-day lives, in our wellness journeys, in our practice, if you like, um for just general health. So I think connecting with the horses is a hugely beneficial um practice or modality, if you like, for frontline workers. Often we have frontline workers coming in with stress and burnout like you've experienced, and just taking an hour of time to do something for themselves. And this is sort of a unique approach to, instead of just going for a walk, which can be beautiful as well, it's just that extra additional uh, way to connect, if you like, through working with horses and other animals. Other animals can be hugely beneficial too. Dogs, cats have been studied to lower blood pressure. Stroking a dog can often reduce blood pressure and heart rate. And there's actually quite a lot of research now too about equine facilitated or equine assisted programs helping with PTSD, specifically veteran programs. A lot of those run in the States and have had huge success. And you may have seen or heard of a film that was recently made about incarcerated individuals working with horses in programs with jails
Hmm.
down in the
I,
States.
no, I haven't heard that. Yeah.
They work with wild Mustangs, which is
Hmm.
an interesting program, and also a lot of
Like
trauma
actual
survivors.
actual wild Mustangs. Oh
Yeah,
wow.
they're wild when they come in.
Hmm.
Because there's a surplus of Mustangs, and so each year they try to rehome a certain number. And so this program uses those Mustangs
Hmm.
to work with the inmates. So yeah, and another group that benefits um, survivors of sexual abuse and youth at risk. First Nations, there have been programs with First Nations groups. So like I said at the beginning, the audience is broad, and absolutely anyone who experiences tension, stress, anxiety, just even, low depression, all of these things can be helped, if you like, by working with horses and doing other nature based or experiential wellness and learning.
Beautiful. I had a podcast with I believe it was Rob Lethan's episode, and he talked about donkeys are extremely special in this area as well because he went and did some equine work with his battle through PTSD. So he said donkeys were incredible as well. Is that any thoughts there? Or?
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, like I said earlier, all animals have this ability because of them being these nonverbal communicators. they connect through other means. So that element of connecting through energy, that other sixth sense we just talked about, I think is one of their special gifts for humans. Yeah. So yeah, donkeys are really full of character too. They're quite hilarious.
Oh, I think the purpose of donkeys and horses is their brain capacity and their heart capacity. Is that kind of what I know about horses and animals? Is that right?
I would say the heart is a major feature because they have a very large heart, huge compared to a human. And so I think that's what makes them super coherent.
Mm.
When the HeartMath Institute started to research groups of people who were amongst certain coherent individuals, and they discovered how contagious coherence is, I think they sort of revealed the reason why horses, when there's a group of them and their huge hearts, can be so magnetic and attractive to humans, and how well suited they are to co-regulating. And then their gut size. So you may have heard this idea of gut feelings, and through the sheer surface area of their gut, they can process emotions extremely well. The gut surface area being as large as it is. So I think those two intelligence centers, their brain is not as large as ours,
Mhm.
but it's sort of a benefit because they don't have the same part of the brain and the same ability to judge
Mhm.
and to hold on to um, stories like humans do.
Mhm.
And so our reality is largely shaped by our stories, which can be beneficial or not. And horses don't have that really. So that also opens it up and helps when we're connecting with them.
Fascinating, man.
Yeah.
So you talked about coherence. Some people might be going, what does that mean exactly? What would be your definition of coherence, and why is it important for well-being and recovery and just living a good life, essentially?
Yeah, I kind of just think of coherence as harmony. And it's that I like to think of it as a flow state. So when your mind and your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions are in alignment, you're in a state of coherence. And when you're in that state, you attract more of that. And so the opposite is true as well. When you're in an incoherent state, that state of chaos attracts more chaos. And horses will certainly reflect that back to you. So if you are an individual that is incongruent, meaning let's say you arrive at the barn and on the way you had a fender bender and you were pretty angry about that because you felt it wasn't your fault, and your car is dented and the person drove off, and you arrive at the barn and uh, I ask you how you're doing and you say, "Oh, I'm great." And you've put a smile on. For whatever reason, you don't want to explain how you really feel. And so you pretend, let's say, that you're feeling great. Well, the horses will respond to the true feeling of that emotion, which when you suppress an emotion, it actually elevates your blood pressure. And so the horses respond to that with a level of mistrust sometimes. Now, my horses are really benevolent and really tolerant, so they're not going to do anything dangerous or mean, but they certainly will walk away or choose not to interact in some cases if somebody is in a troubling state of incongruence, because the trust is hard for them to find. So if you're incongruent as an individual and you're sending out these signals of incongruence to the horses, it sort of sending out a signal of, I'm not able to look after myself. I'm not able to keep myself safe and be aware of my own self. And so it says to them that you're not really a good leader as such to help them. So that would be an example of incongruence. And so then when you're congruent and you come in and you are feeling really in a positive space and you're touching the horse really gently and you're moving around in a space of joy and you just kind of exude this feeling of happiness and lightness, then you are totally magnetic. Those horses are going to be all around you. They're going to lay down with you. So my horses have actually laid down with certain individuals, which is a huge gift that even I had never experienced in my 30 years of working with horses.
Wow.
Until I had my own here doing this work. They will lay down and they will drop into the space in total vulnerability, which is such a gift. But they'll only do that with people they feel safe with. And that safety comes from trust and that congruence that they bring to the space.
I've seen some images, photos of you laying down with your horses, and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that before. I don't think I've
Yeah,
ever
it's
seen a
so
horse
cool.
lay down with a person before. It was like just like they're cuddling on the dirt there. It was amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the first time we did that, I did that. I was just the little child in me, that
I bet.
little girl in me was just lit up. I was just so excited. I just couldn't believe that they were trusting me enough to lay down and actually sleep.
Yeah.
Aura would sleep in my lap, which is, yeah, it's
Wow.
incredible. I just wanted to emphasize like how there's certain things happening in our world, if you like, which I think is going to lead us to this question of what makes us humans, what makes us people. As AI becomes more prevalent and as other technologies become more prevalent and transhumanism sort of develops and we move into this more technological world, I think this idea of, you know, what are we, who are we, what is right, will really be prevalent. And so connecting to our intuitive voice, really remembering what makes us human, what differentiates us is going to be so important. And so I think this work with horses and work with nature, being outside, this nature-based education is going to really help with that.
Mhm. I would agree.
Yeah. And then as individuals, if we are strong and connected and lit up, we can contribute to the field. And that meditation I was talking about that I did this morning is an example of that. When you have this connection to nature and your connection to self, you can then just sit and send that out. And that's a way that you can connect globally and you can actually do something. We watch the news and we feel sort of helpless. We feel like humanity is going down such a terrible path and that there's no hope for us. It can be really depressing. This is sort of a light or a way for us to feel like we can do something and it's going to help and it's going to contribute in a positive way. So to me, it's not just about working with individuals, it's also about the collective and how we can all help raise humanity up and raise our communities and contribute to change, to progress globally.
Yeah, I didn't really consider it like that before because I've even been in the trap myself of I'm one person on Salt Spring Island on the west coast of BC, small little community, very lucky where I live. I can't do anything about the politics across the world. I can't do anything about the pollution across the world. I can't do anything about the anger across the world. I can't do anything about the global, issues across the world. But saying what you just said there, we actually do have a bit of a voice that we can put that energy out into the world, right? And see
Totally.
if other people pick up on that, that we are doing our part, right? So
100%. The more you work on your own learning, your own development, your own spiritual elevation, the more you can help others, the more you can regulate others, leading through example or even doing things more actively, even in your smaller communities, in your family, and then on a broader scale by, like I said, sending it out globally and beyond.
love to, before we go on to our next kind of conversation, you talked about leadership, and I'm pretty passionate about leadership. How does leadership and horses, how do they put together? How does that work? And how does that help a person's leadership development?
Yeah, so leadership is one of my passions too, and I love what working with horses can bring to the table. So, just briefly, the horse herd used to be viewed very much as a dominance and submissive paradigm. So we used to experience horse herds as like there was an alpha, and then everybody else was subservient to the alpha. Well,
Mm,
don't. They do, most of us now have realized that that's a very limited mindset. So now what we've understood is that there's several roles that most of the herd members rotate. And so the four roles that horses participate in are the leader role, the dominant role, the nurturer companion, and the sentinel.
mm,
And so notice that the leadership and the dominant roles are separate. And then human herds also have this predator role, which we can sometimes use.
mm,
And so when I do leadership work with the horses, we talk about those roles. We do an assessment to see what roles you emphasize or what role you emphasize and which ones you find the most challenging. And then we do these exercises or experiences with the horses to try and balance those roles a bit more, or to at least help you experience what it feels like to participate in the role more. And so you can bring more of those qualities because every role has its pros and cons. I like to think of it as sort of a volume button. When you have the role turned on at the suitable volume, it's powerful and it's beneficial and it's fantastic. And then if you turn the volume up way too high, then you start to see the challenges of that role. And so we talk about that and we experience that
mm.
through actually doing the roles.
Wow.
And horses, being herbivores, are masters of socially intelligent leadership. So they, more often than not, cooperate rather than compete
Mm,
in the wild. So we can learn a lot from them about how to cooperate as human herds rather than to compete. Competition, as you know, is sort of built into our society and our economic system. We're sort of told or conditioned that there is scarcity in this world, that there's a scarcity of resources, that there's a scarcity of money, and that we have to fight and compete for that through educating ourselves or through working really hard or competing with our colleagues to get that next promotion. And that mindset of competition is something that I think is sort of it's dying out, and we need
mm,
to move away from that into a more collective cooperative model. So horses are perfect examples of beings that are doing this really well. And so that's sort of a little bit about where the leadership model comes from. And Linda Kohanov has written a book. It's called The Five Roles of the Master Herder. And so that largely works as the textbook, if you like, for the experiences and the material.
wow. Yeah, I can't say I've ever considered a horse teaching me about leadership, but it totally makes sense how you're describing it there for sure. And I think competition has its role and its place, but I think also you make a lot of good points there about the scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. If we have a scarcity mindset, it's all negative stuff coming into our flow, right? So if we can have a more collective mindset where we're supporting each other versus trying to knock each other down, to make a healthier world.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. Like a little healthy dose of competition
Hmm.
is great. It's just when it permeates every aspect of our lives and causes us this anxiety and stress because we're sort of in this rat race trying to keep up, then I think it becomes questionable. Who is it really serving? Is it valuable to us to live like that? And can we find or see a different way? I think horses model that really well. My horses, if you spend a day with them, which I often do or did before I had my daughter, their day is pretty much a long stretch of contentment. It's their needs are all met. They live very nicely in a nice environment, but it's a very relaxed, connected way of being that I think all of us would love more of in our lives.
100%.
Oh, the one thing I wanted to say as well about emotional regulation, horses have this 4-step process. So I'll share it with the audience. So they feel the emotion in its purest form. So when you see a horse that's potentially scared, its whole body goes rigid. It stops what it's doing. It fully focuses on this feeling of fear. Then it looks around and it tries to gather information. So the second point is to get the information behind it. So they do that. They make sure that they scan the environment and they see if there's a real threat there. And then the third thing is to do something in response. So do we run away? Do we relax? Do we alert the herd? And then finally, and this is a really important part, they go back to grazing, which means they let it go and they just resume homeostasis. And we as humans really have a hard time with that fourth step. Going back to grazing, releasing and moving forward. It's like I said earlier, holding these stories and holding on to these hurts, this tension, is so detrimental to us in the long term. And that's why methods like your TRE or EFT, which is the tapping, or other modalities are so helpful because they help us release that and they help us go back to grazing, which horses just do naturally. So
I know when you
that's
said that, all the emotions, I was like, well,
Yeah.
so the first three, I thought, well, humans do that when they're trying to be mindful, when they're consciously working on their self-regulation. But the fourth one, like you said, is one that probably doesn't happen very often. But the first three, I could totally resonate for somebody who's working on their wellness. They're gonna try to work on those three stops, right? They're gonna, say you're trying to get grounded in your room. You're looking around at your senses. Okay, there's a window there. There's a door there. I'm safe. There's nothing around me. So humans do that occasionally if they're kind of body and stress IQ aware. But for them to get to that fourth stage is very irregular.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Yes.
It's like I know all of this stuff and I'm lucky to have some of this knowledge, but it doesn't make it any easier sometimes.
Mhm.
And then, it almost feels worse that you can't get a grip because you should know better.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, even though you know that the right thing to do would be to let it go and move forward, sometimes we just can't. And so that's when people like yourself or other coaches can help people kind of move forward and through certain blocks.
Mhm.
Horses as well, they reveal old patterns.
Mm.
They often act as mirrors. They often will challenge people exactly in the way they need so that they can move through something that they might not even be conscious of. I can't tell you how many people have come and said, "Oh, I don't I don't have a need for bigger boundaries, or I don't feel proximity of others." And we do this exercise where I approach a person and I ask them to be aware of their body's response to my proximity. And then later we do this with the horses. But initially I do it with them. And a lot of people feel or think that they're going to have no response to proximity. Usually, these are the type of people that are huggers, that like to be close and affectionate with their loved ones. But all of us have an unconscious physiological response to proximity eventually. So I might be right up in your face, but eventually you're going to have this response. And if you're aware of that, then it starts to open the door to this somatic sort of discussion or learning from your body more. A lot of us don't feel anything in our bodies unless we're sick or injured. So the conversation is always very, my back is chronically in pain. So yeah, now I feel my back, but I never really was conscious of it when it was in total bliss and comfort. And so, things like that, that little uh, activity I just described, or the body scan, help people to open up the dialogue with their body.
100%. Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, most of my career I was going through with lots of red flags, different aches and pains and tension, and I ignored it for a long time until I truly understood what listening to your body means, being connected to your body means, and how important it is. So that's where TRE kind of came into the picture for myself, right? And then also the exposure to yourself and coaching and a whole bunch of modalities to support that. So through TRE is the process of shaking out trauma. Do horses shake?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So they're almost like, again, they're sort of TRE experts.
Hmm.
What horses typically do is they get onto the ground and they roll around.
Mm.
And even though it might look like they're just scratching, which sometimes they are, they're also resetting their nervous system, sometimes making physical shifts, but always shaking out emotional stress. And I don't know if you've witnessed dogs, but they're like dogs. They'll literally shake
Hmm. Hmm.
after some kind of stressful event. When they go back to grazing after their 4 steps of emotional processing, they often will shake before they go back
It's amazing.
to eating. Yeah.
Mm. Well, that's what we talk about in TRE is, the classic example of the gazelle getting chased by the lion out in the safari. There's two outcomes. The gazelle gets eaten by the lion and game over, or the gazelle goes into the bush, finds a nice safe space, and it'll actually shake off that tension. And just like you mentioned about the horses, they'll get up and start going back to grazing like nothing ever happened.
Isn't
'Cause
that crazy?
yeah, they had a chance to reset their nervous system, and they probably don't have that part of the brain that, just like you mentioned, that records history and memories, right? As much as humans do, anyways. But yeah, that's amazing. And there's some experts out there that say there's no animals in the wild that have PTSD. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I'm sure there's some animals in captivity for sure, but animals in the wild, apparently, they have the natural and innate ability to self-regulate themselves.
Well, I think it makes sense. I love nature shows. David Attenborough is sort of a voice that I will go to my grave in my head. um, and I've seen that it's kind of a crazy thing. You just almost died
Mhm.
and they're back with their herd
Yeah,
eating.
unbelievable. Yeah,
It's
unbelievable.
unbelievable. I mean, if they can do it, I
Yep,
think we can get there.
100%. Juliana, we have a few pretty exciting partnerships kind of coming up here. We have a workshop that we're kind of doing a talk at on Salt Spring Island in coming up in November, where we're going to share a bit about the story that we're talking about today. And then we also have a really big event that we're planning for 2024 together, and super stoked to kind of do this journey with you as an expert in your field. And I truly think that both of our modalities and our mindset and our beliefs definitely align with helping people thrive in their lives again, right? Um, so it sits well with me, and I know it sits well with you. So maybe just a little recap of our little session on Salt Spring, the first one, and then we'll jump into the big ticket event. So what's this event coming up in November that people, especially locally in Vancouver Island or Salt Spring, could attend at a beautiful location as well?
Yeah, so I'm super excited. We're going to be doing something similar to a TEDx talk. Arjuna and I are both going to be talking, and we are going to share our feelings and thoughts and experiences around learning from the body, also known as somatic learning and experiential learning. And I'm going to touch on why somatic learning with horses specifically has such an impact. And Arjuna is going to talk about tension release. So I'm excited, to share more stories about clients and their experiences, and also give people a little taste of what we are hoping to offer at the retreat, the Revive and Thrive retreat that we're hoping to host here on Salt Spring Island,
Yes.
which will be, several days, a deeper dive into some of the things that we've been discussing here, how horses can help us with burnout prevention, experiencing those 5 roles that I talked about, empowered leadership and connection, a lot of wellness elements there. We're going to have some great food. It's going to be at a really nourishing, beautiful location where you can fully relax and connect to nature. It's in a beautiful natural place there on the ocean. And we are hoping to really get intimate with our group. It's a smaller group, so not too many people, and kind of create a little family there for the weekend. Working with groups is such a powerful experience, especially when there's that magic number where there's not too many, there's just enough that you can have shared experiences. So yeah, we're gonna,
Yeah, it's exciting.
yeah,
So
it's super
that's
exciting.
going to be a fall of 2024, and
Yeah.
there'll be more information coming out soon. But we just want to kind of put it out there, plant the seed, and this is not a workshop. This is a retreat, a destination retreat. This location is it will be released soon, but this location is beyond stunning, beyond a dream come true. Honestly, I've dreamt of holding retreats for a long time. I've wanted to hold retreats. I think it's part of my purpose here to hold space in that kind of area. Retreats, I think, are just powerful. They're so immersive versus just going there for 4 hours or whatever that looks like, right? So stay tuned. This is going to be a very exciting journey. There's going to be lots of discussion about high performers, business executives, people who are thriving or trying to thrive in their life or once was thriving and just need a little restart, little rebalance into life because we both want to see people thrive in their jobs and their careers, in their families and their lives. And yeah, this is going to be a very special occasion. So stay tuned for more events coming from both of us. But this one in fall of 2024 is going to be pretty impressive. So there will be opportunity to work with horses, there will be opportunity to do coaching, learn. There's going to be lots of learning components to this. There's going to be components where you can actually try TRE with myself. And TRE is a somatic process, much like Juliana's process of working with the body. It really allows the body to, or the human to connect to their body. It rebalances the nervous system, which pretty much everyone on earth could do with a little rebalancing of their nervous system. It doesn't have to be trauma. It doesn't have to be some bad experiences that you've had. Honestly, TRE can be a supportive tool for anyone in the world who's experienced some stress day to day stress. That's all it has to be, stress and tension. And that's really where I want to focus on. So I know there's a lot of people out there in the world who would love to kickstart their life a little bit. And this is definitely an opportunity to do that. So very excited. Very excited to
Yeah,
partner with Juliana as well.
me too. I'm super excited to partner with you. And I love how you bringing the masculine energy in and having the background that you do, and then me bringing in this more feminine approach as well. It's such a nice
Mhm.
combination. Yeah, and we have the horses there as another element, so it's really a unique opportunity. And being on Salt Spring, we're so blessed because it's a destination for healing and
Yeah.
for connecting with nature already. So we're just going to harness a little bit of that magic.
100%.
Yeah.
And like I said, the destination is mind blowing. Mind blowing.
Yeah. I can't wait to reveal the
Yes,
images and videos
exactly.
and share with people this amazing new location that is going to blow their minds.
Yes, 100%. Juliana, how can people learn more about you and maybe connect with you if they want to learn more about the work you do?
Absolutely. So consciouseequineconnections.com is my website, and email Juliana, Juliana, at consciousequineconnections.com. Send me an email, and I do individual private sessions. I do semi-privates, and also in the summer and spring, I do 1 and 2 day workshops for up to 6 people. And then, as Arjuna and I have been talking about, we have these other larger scale retreats as well in the pipeline. So
Yes.
lots of opportunities and different ways to connect, and I highly recommend checking out Arjuna's book too, because that was a real insight for me into burnout and how to recover from burnout, and it really sparked some ideas for how I could support people more by listening to Arjuna's story and what he did. And I think it's just amazing what you did, Arjuna, to turn this massive life challenge into a whole new career of helping others. I think that's just such a beautiful choice
Thank
to
you.
turn something like that around and turn it into something so gold.
Yeah. Well, I've said this before in podcasts and some keynotes and stuff that I truly felt like the fire service was my calling until this. And now I truly feel that this is my calling, and the fire service was a stepping stone to what I need to do now in this world. So, yeah, I feel pretty blessed to be able to be in this situation where I have those years of experience under my belt, and now I can support others who want to do what I was doing as a firefighter, fire chief, or as a business executive or an entrepreneur, but thrive doing it versus burning out. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
it's
yeah,
great.
yeah, I love it.
Super, super amazing how everything synchronistically works to deliver us exactly at the place we're meant to be. And I think it's just amazing that all of the work. I remember when I first reconnected with you and I went on your website and I saw how many certifications and diplomas, and I thought, man, he dedicated himself 100% to this shift, and I really admire that. Yeah, I think that your dedication to learning and your own personal growth is so important as a facilitator, and that's what makes a great coach. So
I appreciate that.
lots of power.
Yes, yes. Well, episode 23, which is coming out in the end of October, which is an episode that's all about my story, actually. It's going to be just a solo episode. But in that episode, there's a question from the BTH community saying, do I hold any of the stress and tension or challenge that the other people hold when they come and talk to me and have through coaching or TRE? And I'll answer it in that one, but I'll answer it here as well. And honestly, I don't hold it. I don't know how I changed that concept in my mind. But in the fire service, I held everyone's tension, everyone's stress, everyone's drama. For some reason, I don't know why, but I held all their stress. And maybe just through the last 3 years of learning about myself and the stress and learning about what stress is in the nervous system and the body, something's clicked to me, but I don't hold people's stress anymore, which is amazing. So it's because I know coaching and somatic work is a high burnout occupation as well. Um, but I don't feel it, which is pretty cool. So
That is
I
super cool.
I feel like I can be totally present with that person in the moment, and then once we're done, I can let it go. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know what the turning point was there, but something's working, and I think it was a question about how is my mental health going to maintain this capacity of supporting other people, right? And I think the main goal is I'm supporting myself first, and then I
Mm.
can support others. So,
It's thankfully, it's a gift that you have that enables you to do the work that you're doing and help all of us.
mhm,
And I have a few of my own little techniques that I use to sort of shake off particularly challenging clients or clients who have particularly sad stories that, affect perhaps your well-being or
mhm.
you think about it afterwards. But the horses are really good at shaking it off, just like your gazelle story too. Like
Exactly.
they don't hold on to it when
Mhm.
a client comes that's particularly a challenge so that's what enables us to do what we do and to help more.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's that double-edged sword of people thinking or feeling that self-care is selfish. Such a incorrect belief, because self-care enables us to care for others so much more deeply and so much more with so much more presence, that it's a gift actually when we look after ourselves for others
100%.
as much as it is for ourselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And maybe that's what I've learned over the last couple of years is that I'm number one, and then if I'm at my prime, then I can support people to their ultimate level, right? So I think that's probably the nuts and bolts of it is that take care of yourself to support others, and our modalities and what we can share together as a team is going to help people take care of themselves.
absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Any last words, Juliana?
No, it's just been such a pleasure. The time just flies by,
It sure
and I
does.
really appreciate your time and sharing your thoughts and insights in this platform with me. And I
Yes.
am super excited to move forward with our projects.
Awesome. Very much so. So everyone listening, stay tuned, and we'll make sure we promote this, across the world essentially, because we want people to experience what we have to share, but also experience Salt Spring Island and the beauty that it has. Um, so we're putting our reach out far and wide. So all the best to you, and thanks, Juliana, and congrats on your newborn, and everyone listening. Until next time, stay well.
Thank you for tuning in to Beneath the Helmet. We hope that this podcast has provided you with valuable insights into the world of firefighters' health and wellness. Remember, caring for your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is crucial to achieving optimal performance. Join us next time on Beneath the Helmet for more inspiring conversations. Until then, stay well.